then in an instant like this, it was like a clap. My consciousness was outside my body, and it was as if I were a ball of light about this high in the midst of the crowd. And it was as if I were not just conscious, I was massively conscious. It was as if by comparison I had never been conscious before.
The cardiac arrest, you have no pulse, no respiration, no brainstem reflexes, no cough reflex, and your pupils are widely dilated and fixed. And that are the clinical signs, the international clinical signs of death. These people are dead. If you can show during that time that people have near-death experiences, in other words, that is a continuing consciousness, then it puts the question of life after death right central on the map.
First I heard a woman's voice saying, "I'm not getting a pulse, I'm not getting a pulse." And I turned to her, and with the same sense of reality with which I am now speaking, I said, "Of course you're getting a pulse. Otherwise I wouldn't be talking." I had no sense of being in physical danger at all.
And then I realized that the same type of light was coming from me. I really was light. I wasn't flesh and bone. All my sensations were more alive than I'd ever experienced. Every nerve ending was alive. All my thoughts, all my experiences, everything was there.
And the next thing I knew, I woke up gagging on a tube, and it was 8 days later. I know it was real. I don't have any doubt in my mind that it wasn't, you know, I just know it was real. It was too detailed to be any kind of dream or hallucination or anything like that.
The light began to fade, and metaphorically I turned around and looked at this world again. I saw the world that I had momentarily left, and it looked like so much paper mache. It looked like two-dimensional fluff, that this was the illusion, and it was all contained within this infinite presence. And as it became more and more solid, I recognized that within 3 weeks, the experience, the intensity of the knowingness and the experience that I was immersed in would be lost, that there was no way my phenomenal mind could contain that. And as you can tell, I'm grasping for words to try to describe what I was actually experiencing.
When I look back on human life, it was like reading a comic book in comparison. It was not real. And I was flabbergasted by how unreal human life is, how I could possibly have ever thought that I was a human being, and that was life. I mean, I could not get over what kind of mechanism it must have taken to convince me that human life was real, when I knew darn well it wasn't, now that I'm in the light and I've got all this access to all this information and I saw, you know, the truths of the universe.
This was far more real than any experience of reality I've ever had in my life. People can understand, this world is a dream compared to the afterlife. Now people think, well, all I know is this, so the afterlife must be dreamlike. They're completely wrong. This is the dream. Your sensations are fewer in this world. Your feelings and knowledge and abilities are much fewer in this world than they will be in the next world.
I was sort of overloaded with what had just happened with me. It was as though I was an appliance built for 110 volts plugged into 220. That was the real world there. You know, that was really home.
We have a certain consciousness here on earth that I believe is inhibited by our physicality. We can't express everything. There seem to be parameters. But when you go over into the spiritual dimension, your consciousness is so expanded. I understood things perfectly over there that I could not understand when I got back here. I could remember them. I knew they were true, but total comprehension of it all, I was not that expanded anymore. I just simply knew it was true. I could have explained it much better over on the other side because of the fact that you're just, oh, Renee, we are so much more than we know that we are.
As I wondered about what was around me, I saw in front of me start to envelop this light that coalesced. Couldn't tell the distance to the light, but it coalesced as a ball. And I marveled at this ball because it was infinite. And it seemed to be the presence I was suspended in that actually took form in front of me. And I spent some time just gaping at this because there was nothing around this ball. This ball contained the universe. Somehow I knew that. And there was nothing, no dimensions, no time, no space, no thing. It was not something my mind could wrap itself around. And I recognized in retrospect, it had to take the form of the ball for me to discern it. The mind can only operate with distinction, what is and what is not. And so it made that distinction for me. As I continued to marvel at this and wonder what was happening to me, I started drawing towards this light that had such presence and such love to it.
And before you is this just magnificent, beautiful, bright white light. You are confronted by true, pure love. In my case, since I've talked to other people, I realize that they necessarily were not given a choice. In my case, at that moment, I was aware that I could immediately choose to leave and return to reality or my body. Or I could have the choice of moving forward or desiring to enter into or become part, rather emotional, become part of this light.
It's difficult to describe. Matter of fact, it's impossible to describe. Verbally, it cannot be expressed. It's something which becomes you and you become it. I could say that I was peace. I was love. I was the brightness. It was part of me. I had no recollection of anything, excuse me, anything biological. It's not like you could see something, because your sight is biological. It's necessary here. Hearing is necessary here. Speech is necessary here. It's not there. You just know. You're all-knowing. Everything is a part of you, and it's just so beautiful. It was eternity. It's like I was always there, and I will always be there. That my existence on Earth was just a very brief instant.
I was not aware of my I, the I-ness of me. As long as I was merged, I was like a receiving station. I just simply received. I received love. I received knowledge. I just received and received. When I had reached a state of such ecstasy and bliss, I suddenly had my very first thought. And that thought was, I wonder how much more of this I can stand until I shatter. I just couldn't take any more. But I didn't shatter, because the way it works is the light began to dissipate and the intensity of the experience began to dissipate a bit. I went out of the intensity where I wasn't aware even of who I was or what I was, into suddenly finding myself in a beautiful green meadow and knowing who I was, and knowing that I had died, knowing what had happened to me. So in my case anyway, when I was merged with the light, my personality, my knowing that I am Jayne, just wasn't part of it.
And then we moved into the source, and I merged into the source, and as I was merging through, it's kind of like, well, your vibration's rising, you know, so it's kind of like through layers. I experienced, the source, and I was still thinking, gee, you know, I could have done a better job at this life, and I really wish that people back on Earth knew what I'm now aware of.
That's really difficult, because we don't have the words to describe the richness of the experience. Because at first I was in awe of it. I didn't, you know, and it took a little bit of exposure to it to get acclimated to it, and because there's a sense of knowing there that's beyond what we're capable of thinking. I mean, I wish I was as brilliant as I was in the light. It's just not possible here. And if I was that brilliant, I would have all these expletives to be able to share with you right now.
There's just no way to talk about it, because all of our words are imbued with physical reality. All of our thoughts and our conceptions are imbued with developed in a place in which there's time and space. And I was in a realm of reality in which there was no time, and in which there was no space, and in which there was no limitation that we experience in this reality. And so therefore, any words that I use, I ask you to please understand, don't relate to the physical words. To see does not mean to see with physical eyes. To hear and to know does not mean to know in the way that we know physically.
It felt expansive. I felt like so much more than what could possibly fit in this body. But I was all light. It was all light, and the light was composed of incredible love and knowledge. Love and knowledge and energy, and communication was effortless, and it was instantaneous, and you could think multiple streams of thought at one time.
And it was as if I were devastated. It was as if I were, you know, just spider silk in the solar wind. I was completely devastated by bliss and by rapture and by ecstasy.
I don't think the consciousness that we contain in here is capable of that expansive, maybe someday,